what Netanyahu said about the peace plan, the so-called peace plan, in his recent interview, it doesn't seem that they're going to get any sort of peace in the Middle East with this plan. But here is what Netanyahu, the way that he's describing the peace plan.
I think that the battering that the Iran axis received opens up many possibilities, but there's still some mopping up that has to be done. I think the most important thing about Gaza was first that the first phase of the plan was achieved, and that was what people didn't believe would happen. I believed, President Trump believed, and with a combined effort, military and diplomatic, that we were able to bring Hamas to give us all our hostages. We still have two left, one Israeli, one Thai citizen. We'll get them too. They're deceased, but the live hostages are out. The second phase is to disarm Hamas and demilitarize Gaza. I think there's a third phase, which is to de-radicalize the Gazan population from 60 years of incredible incitement, incredible brainwashing, which has really has to be changed. But the first phase is you've got to get rid of Hamas. Now, that is going to happen in one of two ways. It could happen with an international force that the United States is trying to put together, and I hope they succeed. And if not, as President Trump has said, and I've said, it can be done the easy way or the hard way. The hard way is that we'll have to do it. I hope we don't, because I don't want to spend more blood and treasure, especially blood, of the Israelis, or for that matter, of Gazans. But if it needs to be done, Hamas can't stay there, and they won't.
Yeah. Well,
I don't see any. Do you see any possibility that Hamas, because Hamas is part of Palestinian Gazans, or many of them. Without Hamas, what does it mean in living in Gaza?
Well, first of all, he said the first phase of the peace plan was realized. Well, that was all about hostage exchange and ceasefire. There is no ceasefire. Israel is killing people every day. It's continuing to blow up buildings. So this is the most amazing thing is, of course, that the only way the hostages have ever been released is through negotiations with Hamas. All of the military force that Israel applied could not recover the hostages, and still can't. And the idea that somehow or other 2 years of warfare aimed at destroying Hamas, which failed, is somehow going to be, you're somehow going to accomplish that through diplomatic means is absurd. Hamas is the banner carrier of Palestinian nationalism in Gaza, and to a considerable extent in the West Bank. He didn't mention the West Bank, where Israel is busily evicting people, building walls, another separation wall in the Jordan Valley, and there's no peace. There won't be any peace. And frankly, Israel doesn't want peace. What it wants is Palestinian-free Palestine. No Palestinians in Palestine is its ideal outcome. And that's not going to happen. The Palestinians have shown an amazing degree of resistance to eviction from Gaza and from the West Bank. Meanwhile, of course, Israel is continuing to attack all its neighbors, and it's building buffer zones along its borders. Those buffer zones in the past have had a way of eventually becoming Israeli territory. So this is expansionism. And Israel seems to have no vision for coexistence with anybody in the Middle East. None. And therefore, it, in the end, will not be able to coexist with anyone in the Middle East. This is a recipe for continued armed conflict as far as the eye can see. And in the end, because nothing is forever, Israeli military supremacy is going to be overcome. So this is a vision of warmongering and war making. There's nothing about it that says anything about peace. And you're never going to get to phase two. By the way, phase two he described as disarming Hamas. It also had to do with Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. I noticed he didn't mention that because he has absolutely no intention of withdrawing. And as far as the international force is concerned, it's been obvious from the beginning. And it is becoming vocally obvious now from those who might have joined such an international force. They will not participate in disarming Hamas against its will. They want to be peacekeepers, not peacemakers, not pacification forces in Gaza. And basically what Israel's trying to do is to get somebody else to do the job in Gaza of finishing off Hamas and evicting the Palestinians that it has been unable to do on its own with American backing, strong American backing. So I don't see anything in this that justifies the policies that Mr. Netanyahu is following. He's following the same policies he's followed for decades. They haven't worked. They haven't made Israel more secure. They will not. And if he gets into another war with Iran, Israelis are going to feel the pain very directly in the Iranian reprisal.
Yeah. He's talking about disarmament of Hamas, and the third phase he's talking, he mentioned, de-radicalization of Gaza. What does that mean? Does it mean that you disarm Hamas, then you're gonna go in and kill all of them? Because
no, I mean it's absurd. Basically, he blames the resistance for resisting Israeli incursions, abuses, human rights abuses, war crimes, murder, massacres, genocide. Supposedly, they should just accept that and love Israel because why? I mean, if Israel keeps doing hateful things, it will be hated. And that is exactly the drama that is playing out now in the West. There was an absurd statement by Hillary Clinton the other day, blaming anti-Israeli sentiment among American youth on TikTok, rather than on the things Israel is doing, which is what people object to. And as long as Israel continues to slaughter people, kill children, babies, burn people to death, destroy their housing, dehumanize them, treat them worse than animals, people are going to hate Israel. It's not a question of de-radicalizing anybody. If Israel behaved in a way that others could accept, they would accept it. But they won't accept a state that engages in mass murder and humiliation.
We had, an interview of the CEO of the Israeli American Council, Ilan Carr, in which he says that we have to learn from what Israel is doing in the Middle East, in the West Asia, to do it here in the United States. Here is what he said, Ambassador, and I want to know, what is your interpretation of what he's talking about?
So we are living in a time of miracles and unprecedented opportunities, and the challenge for us here, and with this I'll end because this is key. The challenge for us here is to leverage Israel's successes into our successes and our victories here, because we are one people. Israel's weakness is ours and Israel's strength is ours. And now that Israel has turned the entire geopolitical situation on its head, our job in the diaspora is to leverage those wins and win here. Do to our enemies here what Israel did to its enemies there, and on that, the IAC is focused.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And
well, I have multiple comments about that. First of all, the idea that Israel's had successes is quite incredible. Israel is now a moral pariah. Nobody wants to have anything to do with it, except for legacy people and some elements of the Jewish diaspora. But a good part of the so-called diaspora, the word diaspora is a ridiculous word because it implies that Jews are not natives of the United States or Brazil or wherever, and that they're somehow in exile. Well, that is ridiculous. But anyway, the idea that Israel's had a success by committing genocide and then arguing that that should be done here in the United States is quite preposterous. But I will make a general comment. Israel has succeeded in one respect. It started out breaking international law, ignoring it, ignoring the United Nations, ignoring the international community, ignoring normal standards of human decency. And it got away with it because the United States protected it from the consequences of its behavior. That was a mistake by the United States. It did not do our reputation any good. But we've now gone farther. We've actually, as he suggested, adopted Israeli practices. Now, Americans are ignoring international law and normal standards of human decency. Now, Americans are adopting a surveillance and police state in which even citizens who, if they are not, if they don't look European, are subject to being grabbed off the street by people in masks who are federal officers and incarcerated. And a 7-year-old has picked up and taken to Texas from Vermont, I believe. Anyway, we are following Israeli practices, and they have been very damaging to Israel, and they are going to be, and they already are, very damaging to us. So this is an argument that is within the Zionist community. It may have some resonance, but frankly, ordinary Americans hearing that will be appalled, absolutely appalled.
Vladimir Putin is in India, and he was asked in his interview about Palestine. And here is what he responded to the reporters.
It's a complex issue that no one has managed to resolve over the years. Hence, it can't be fixed in just a few months by clicking a button. However, we should aim precisely at achieving this goal, establishing a Palestinian state. What has been done until now was done by President Trump. Naturally, primarily the return of Israeli hostages and Hamas took this step. I think, frankly speaking, this was the most important thing that was done as part of the latest steps for the settlement in Gaza. I believe it would be correct, perhaps, to think about the possibility of organizing the governance in such a way as to transfer all authority to the Palestinians. There are such options. They are being discussed both by Arab countries and the neighbors and beyond it. It's being discussed in the United States as well, I know it. As part of the United Nations, we have always taken part in this process. We will continue to do that with our friends.
Yeah. How do you see the position of Russia and together, even if we bring the China's position as well, because these are two important countries after all in the West Asia?
Russia, the position that President Putin just outlined is exactly what the international community wants. I mean, he made an emphasis, turn over the authority to the Palestinians. This means self-determination, which is the core issue for the Palestinians. He referred to a Palestinian state being established. This is what the world wants. The only opposition to that, really, is now from Israel and the United States. He correctly stated that the only real achievement President Trump has had in this context was a hostage exchange. The rest of the so-called Gaza peace plan is, as I indicated, is just not going to go anywhere. It's interesting to hear President Putin say these things because about 1/5 of Israelis are actually Russians. Some of them with very dubious credentials as Jews. But Russia has an intimate relationship with Israel, and yet it takes a just stand on the Palestinian issue. China does the same, but it doesn't have the connections with the Israeli population that the Russians do. And also China, unlike Russia, Russia is an active diplomatic actor internationally. China practices strategic neutrality. It does not want to get entangled in other people's quarrels, and that works out very well for it. And it makes it possible for the Chinese, when conditions are ripe, to act as conciliators or mediators, as they did in the repairing the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They talk to everybody. They have made an effort to unify the Palestinians, who are very divided into different factions, quite understandably, in part because the Israelis have sought to divide them, in part because they are almost as fractious as the Israelis. The Israelis are very divided among themselves on almost every question. So are the Palestinians. So I thought that was an intelligent statement. And the final irony, however, is that India, of course, which is now in the grips of Hindutva, meaning Hinduizing ideology, has an excellent relationship with Israel because Israel is anti-Muslim. And the principal enemy of India is Pakistan, which separated from the rest of India in order to have an Islamic homeland. So India is very anti-Muslim. It treats Muslims in its own country quite badly on occasion. There is communal violence. And that has made it, given it common cause with Israel. It also is, of course, a major purchaser of Israeli military equipment. I suppose one of the major developments from the Putin summit with Modi in Delhi is that India is buying S-400s, more S-400s air defenses. I think these are becoming quite popular. I don't know whether Iran has S-400s yet, but it certainly has S-300s. And the characteristic American reaction to this has been sanctions. So, for example, when Turkey made that purchase, the United States sanctioned Turkey. I don't know what the reaction will be from the Trump administration to the familiar demonstration that India and Russia have a special relationship.